here very, very clearly and very categorically that have nothing and absolutely nothing to do with the cruel death of Sharon.
Sharon Otieno was not only controversial but also secretive to the people around her. Far from her glamorous Facebook lifestyle, which was run on 5 different accounts, the university student was a dark horse even to her family and people who called her a friend. In school, she not only dressed conspicuously well but also had no time for small talk or making new friends. No one knew where she lived. She always went to class late and was the first to leave immediately lectures were over. Sharon was living what is referred to in online lingo as an Instagram life. She was a real baddie. She was either at an airport, a hotel, a club, or taking expensive drinks. At one point during Easter, she posted a bottle of Johnny Walker Black Label whiskey leaving for an unknown destination, and she said that she was at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Terminal 2A. Although she led a glamorous life on social media, her family was poor. Like their neighbors in Magare Village, Homa Bay County, they lived in a mud-walled and iron sheet-roofed house and have no electricity or running water. She was rarely home and she did not talk to her siblings. Her mother, Melinda Auma, took care of her children as she traveled the world displaying opulence on her social media pages. Sharon Otieno was 26 years old at the time of her death. Yes, she was in love. She was a Rongo University student who met a man on a night out with friends. The man would lead her to her early grave in just a span of 6 months after meeting him. Born in 1992, Sharon was the first born of her family of 3. Her parents Melinda Auma Otieno and Douglas Otieno. Sharon was previously married to Bernard Okuta, with whom she had bore 2 children, but later dumped him upon meeting Migori Governor Okoth Obado. The man was charming. He was kind and good to her. He was not just friendly to her, he was Sharon's friend. Despite his busy life as a politician, he always made time to meet Sharon. He bought her gifts, took her to fancy restaurants. He was quite romantic. Sharon fell for the man, and she believed that he had fallen for her because that is what he said. She could also tell it from the way he looked at her. Eventually, because she fell in love with her friend, a politician, Sharon Otieno, got pregnant for Okoth Obado. As the pregnancy progressed, Miss Otieno became increasingly desperate for the governor's attention and support. She had used every trick in her book to worm her way back to Mr. Obado's life, including on several really desperate days, sending photos of her baby bump and the ultrasound to the governor's family and friends to no avail, and she was quickly running out of patience and time. Sharon's desperation was also related to the fact that relations with her husband, with whom she had 2 children, a boy and a girl, were frosty because of her affair with the governor. She also had a son from a previous relationship. A student without any means of support, she was forced to move back with her mother together with 3 children and a 4th on the way. And so she sought out former Kanyadoto Ward, Homa Bay County MCA Lawrence Obonyo Owor to introduce her to a journalist who could help her to expose and shame Governor Obado. On a cold July morning, Mr. Awor met with Mr. Obado at Serena Hotel in Nairobi, and the governor wanted to know what Miss Otieno wanted. By and by, Mr. Obado was given the terms Miss Otieno wanted, shillings 20 million to buy a house in Nairobi or Kisumu and 5 million shillings for her upkeep, totaling to 25 million shillings. Mr. Obado is reported to have made a counter proposal that was to build Miss Otieno a 3-bedroom house on an acre in Homa Bay, all at a cost of 3 million. He was prepared to pay the money at the end of the month, that is August, according to sources privy to witness statements. Communication having been established, it is also alleged that the governor paid a total of 280,000 shillings for Miss Otieno's upkeep in 2 installments. It was in the midst of these goings on that Miss Otieno received a call from Mr. Oyamo on September 3 asking her to meet him at Rongo later that evening. She resisted, suggesting instead that they meet at Rodi Kopani, which was near home. Mr. Oyamo, however, insisted that they meet at Rongo, and her mother cautioned her against going for the meeting alone, and so she called Mr. Odor to accompany her. Mr. Oyamo is said to have requested to meet Mr. Odor alone first before seeing Miss Otieno, but the reporter refused, saying the governor's aide would have to meet them both at Grasha Hotel. At Grasha Hotel, Mr. Oyamo asked that they leave and paid the bill and led them to the Toyota Fielder, believed to have been driven by Mr. Gombe, and they headed towards Homa Bay. Mr. Oyamo stopped the car a few meters from the hotel and alighted as 2 other men jumped in and sandwiched Mr. Otieno and Mr. Odor. Mr. Odor jumped out of the car at Nyangweso Trading Center and dashed for help, but Sharon was not lucky, for she was heavily pregnant. At around 9 p.m., the driver was ordered to get off the road near Oyugis, and the 2 unidentified men left with Sharon Otieno. 7 days earlier on August 27, Mr. Oyamo is believed to have bought an Airtel mobile phone SIM card in Migori town and registered it in the name of Vincent Obonyo. He diverted all calls on his Safaricom line to voicemail and used the new line, and this makes us ask this question: why did he do this? Because this makes it clear that there was definitely a motive. The series of events that led up to the death of Miss Sharon Otieno were kicked off by a call from Mr. Omondi Okoth Elvis, a police constable attached to the governor's security team. Mr. Omondi called a taxi driver, Mr. Jackson Otieno Gombe, the driver of a grey Toyota Fielder KCL 418K, to pick up Mr. Oyamo at Uriri town on the Migori-Rongo Road. Uriri is the hometown of Governor Obado. At around 6 p.m., Mr. Gombe picked Mr. Oyamo as well as 2 other men, whom witnesses claimed belonged to the governor's campaign team during the last election at Uriri, and headed towards Rongo town. The final destination was Grasha Hotel. Then they headed about 5 kilometers from Migori town. It's not clear under what circumstances Sharon Otieno agreed to leave the vehicle. According to the source, the driver claimed that the 2 men returned after half an hour and said they had taken the pregnant girl, who is Sharon Otieno, home. They were dropped off at Uriri and the driver returned to Migori. The following day, in the afternoon, Miss Otieno's bloodied body was found in a thicket where she lay in her blood-stained white tracksuit with her underwear and condoms around her. She had been stabbed in the neck, back and abdomen, and according to the post-mortem examinations, she had bled to death. her unborn son was stabbed through the spine and the knife exited through the stomach. Mr. Oyamo reported to the police that he had been kidnapped while meeting Ms. Otieno and Mr. Odor at Grasa Hotel by two men driving a white Toyota Axio and robbed him of 270,000 shillings and his two mobile phones. He claimed to have lost consciousness during the ordeal and found himself at Kisii Referral Hospital the following day. It is alleged that Mr. Oyamo's mobile phones were active around his hometown of Uriri until 11 a.m. on the night Ms. Otieno died. On the morning of the day that Ms. Otieno died, Ms. Sharon Otieno was abducted and later murdered. 4 of the governor's aides gathered at a home about 5 kilometers from Migori town. The 4, Mr. Michael Juma Oyamo, a personal assistant to Governor Obado, Mr. Caspar Lojoang, another personal assistant, Police Constable Elvis Omondi, the governor's bodyguard, and Mr. Diko Gola, the sergeant at arms at Migori County Assembly, all of them who were charged for the murder of Sharon Otieno. Later, police traced the vehicle allegedly used by the abductors, and its tracking device had been deactivated on the day of the alleged abductions and reactivated the following day in a well-calculated move by the killers to conceal the movement of the vehicle in question. The investigations also established that an intimate relationship had existed between Mr. Obado and Ms. Sharon Otieno, which subsequently led to a pregnancy with Sharon Otieno, and the governor was unhappy about it. As Mr. Obado became the focus of investigation and amid intense media speculation, he publicly denied on 12 September that he was involved in Ms. Otieno's murder. As a law-abiding citizen, I want to state here clearly and categorically that I have nothing and absolutely nothing to do with the cruel death of Sharon.
This is here very clearly and very categorically that I have nothing and absolutely nothing to do with the cruel death of Sharon. And I want to urge all our government agencies, all the agencies that are mandated with investigations, to speed up their work so that the real killers can be brought to book as fast as possible. Last but not least,
his lawyer Cliff Ombeta also mentioned that Governor Obado's wife had known and that there was no shame left nor embarrassment, so malice couldn't then have been created thereafter. He also noted that Governor Obado had given Sharon the financial support when she needed it and had not been involved in her murder in any way. Governor Obado was arrested and charged with the murder of Rongo University student Sharon Otieno. Sharon Otieno was buried in her grandfather's home in Magare village in a solemn burial ceremony on October 19, 2018. Notable leaders.
The burial had been delayed for over 6 hours. Med25 International Kenya Hospital mortuary had declined to release the infant's body due to a lack of a burial permit, delaying a burial that was supposed to take place yesterday. The family too was short on cash to cater for the burial expenses, but they had a helping hand from the Homa Bay County government. The fetus finally laid to rest hours after the burial time, according to Luo custom.
The killer's knife that swept through her mother's abdomen. At Magari village, villagers came in their numbers to pay last respects to the unborn. Sad faces mourning the double tragedy that has thrown the village into 2 funerals of mother and son. It was a funeral without speeches.
Sharon died afraid and confused. She died a horrifying death in the hands of savage men that she did not even recognize. Sharon died with 1,000 questions that she barely had time to articulate. Probably, the final and most prominent thought on Sharon's mind was, why? As she breathed her last, she probably asked herself why this was happening to her and her unborn child. Why was a student messing around with men her father's age? Shouldn't she have been in school focusing on her education? Why was she involved with a prominent politician if her motive wasn't to extort money from him and enrich herself out of the man's misery? Why take advantage of an innocent and impressionable girl only to end her life in such a cruel manner? Either way, she was someone's mom, someone's daughter, and someone's friend. She died, and she did not deserve to die like this. Life had so much in store for her. We pray that she finds justice, and may she continue resting in peace. The case is still in court, and we will keep updating you. I have been your host, Lily's Rams. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the next video.